Everybody ready to go? Hopefully? Okay. Good deal. 121. P.1480, this is steering linkage, a little bit of linkage service. Mostly rack and pinion stuff, because that's what is the most common, but there is a little bit of the old style steering linkage in here that you'll see. All right. Gotta figure out what the steering linkage components are, be able to identify them. Rack and pinion inner tie rods, describe four-wheel steering systems. This was around for a while. I don't know that you still see much of that. Anybody know anything or any familiar with any cars that have four-wheel steer? No? Four-wheel steering, where the back tire turns you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I think one of the Skylines, Nissan Skyline, I think one of them have it.
So does it really?
Yeah, the rear wheels, when you hit a corner at a tight angle, I think when it exceeds a specific angle, the rear wheels curve the opposite direction, so it helps you with that cornering. So like this will turn this way, and then the rear wheels will turn this way a little bit, and then it like helps you with your cornering.
Yeah. It's great for parking too.
Yeah, I think Mercedes has it, S-Class.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not really all that familiar with it. I know they had it on some Chevy trucks for a while. But what's that? Silverado, like the 2500.
Is that what they put on the Mercedes that could do a 360-degree turn?
Oh, they do?
There's a Mercedes that could do like a...
Mercedes has a lot of shit like that.
Yeah,
They have a
They got a lot of
6x6
weird
G-Wagon. They have a 6x6 G-Wagon where all the four rear tires
Oh, really?
change. They all turn, but they go pretty far. I was like, so you can kind of crab walk, like in a specific direction. So if you turn the front wheels, they'll turn the same direction. You can kind of just go this
They
way.
have the same
slide
phase
this
and an
way.
opposite phase,
Yeah.
depending on what you're doing.
Exactly.
They're able to turn the same way or they turn the opposite way.
Yeah.
The electric Hummers are it too.
They do, huh?
Yeah, the electric Hummer. It's called like a crab walk too.
Yeah, I saw the first one that actually came into town a couple of years ago. They had it over at Fairway. For some reason, this guy obviously had more money than brains because he wanted the very first electric Hummer to come to Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the word I got, but he paid $100,000 over a sticker for it, so he could have the first one. Unbelievable. Who would do something like that?
Him.
People that have money and don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Purpose and procedure for performing a dry park test, which we've talked about before in the other chapter. Steering linkage lubrication. Most of them don't need lubrication now because all of the tie rod ends, ball joints, all that kind of stuff are sealed now. The older ones had grease fittings on them, but common wear items. The steps for under vehicle inspection and steering system, how to replace certain steering parts. Okay, steering linkage. All that does is relay the forces from the steering wheel to the front wheels. Got to have something to connect the actual steering gear to the wheels. That's just your linkage. We have a parallelogram type, which has 4 tie rods, 2 inner, 2 outer. Center link, idler arm on the passenger side, the fitment arm, which is attached to the gear output, or that sucker shaft on the gear that we, recirculating ball steering gear we just talked about. Your tie rod ends. Connect the steering linkage to the actual steering knuckles and the other steering linkage components. Your conventional tie rods, just a hardened steel ball side assembly installed into a hardened steel thermoplastic bearing. Internal preload spring limits the ball stud in play, helps compensate for wear. This is your typical older style, what they call a parallelogram steering linkage. Here is your pitman arm. This is what connects to the sector shaft in the steering gear, okay? The one with the teeth on it. Okay? Remember the question that said what actually moves the steering linkage when you turn the steering wheel? The pitman arm, okay?
You said it connects to the what and
The sector shaft
the second.
in the steering gear.
thing.
So when you turn the steering wheel, this moves back and forth, moves the steering linkage, okay? Inner tie rod, outer tie rod. Idler arm is going to be on the passenger side. Obviously, most cars are left-hand drive unless you have something that's right-hand drive. Obviously, everything's backwards on those. This is going to be bolted to the frame. This just kind of keeps this whole system in line, okay? It's called the idler arm.
You said it keeps what in place though?
If this steering linkage gets out of alignment, let's say this starts to wear and it kind of goes a little bit crooked, causes problems in the steering. So this just kind of keeps this whole thing lined because it's held here by the steering gear, right, and this pitman arm. So you got to have something over here to support the linkage. We just
Okay.
call that the idler arm.
Okay, and that's it.
Most common type of parallelogram is called the Haltenberger linkage, used on some cars, trucks, and vans. Okay, so you can see the animation here of how this works from that pitman arm that's hooked to the second shaft. And you got your idler arm, obviously, over here holding the other end of this steering linkage. These idler arms do wear out once in a while, but they'll kind of tell you how to check it, how to tell if it's bad. Okay, what is this?
Steering dampener.
That looks like a shock absorber mounted sideways on the steering linkage, right? Exactly what it is. You'll see those on some Jeeps and, you know, obviously some Hummers have them, stuff like that. Steering dampener. Okay. Ball joint. Dual bearing design with a preload spring, use of two bearing surfaces that allow one rotation for steering, the other for pivoting, allow suspension movement up and down. Got a nylon wedge type bearing in there. It allows for extended loop intervals, whereas automatically compensated by the tapered design and spring load. And that's actually a tie rod end, isn't it? Yeah. Kind of look the same in that picture. Okay. The rubber bonded socket, construction of rubber casing surrounding the ball stud, which is then inserted into a socket on the tie rod end. Hold that the socket allows air to escape as the ball stud is installed. Not a place for grease fitting. This socket is crimped over the ball so the part to the ball socket lip retains the stud. So this is just tie rod ends. They're just telling you how that kind of works inside. And again, most of the new ones are sealed. You won't see grease fittings on there, so they don't really require a service. If it's worn out, you just replace it. The inner tie rods on a rack and pinion steering is also called the ball socket assembly. It's attached to the end of the steering rack by one of three methods. It's either going to be staked, riveted, or pinned, or bolts. On the center takeoff rack, it is bolted. Okay, inside picture of an inner tie rod. That's obviously your boot on the outside. You can see your pin, preload spring, the socket, and the actual tie rod itself. Variety of methods used to secure it, which we just saw in the other piece. Roll pin, set screw, or a swag socket. This is the center takeoff style, that one is bolted. Okay, anybody heard front steer, rear steer in those terms?
New.
Yeah, what does it mean? Anybody know? What's the difference between front steer and rear steer?
I'm not sure, but taking a guess. Front steer is probably just, regular steering, and then rear steer would be counteracting, so you can add more angle to a steer, I guess, or.
Okay, that is confusing the way I asked that question. I didn't mean rear steer like the rear wheel steer. I just mean what's the difference between a front steer steering system and a rear steer? Nothing to do with the rear wheels. Front steer is also called forward steer. Steering was used to drive the vehicle that has a steering gear in front of the front wheel center line. That's all it is. If you look at the picture on 1483, you'll see the difference. It's just where the steering gear is. Is it forward of the center line of the front wheel, or is it back?
Oh,
Okay? No big deal. That's all it means. Steering located, if the steering linkage is located behind the wheels, it's called rear steer. Forwarding forces are imposed on the steering in the direction of the turn. There you go. That's the only difference. Front steer, rear steer. It's just where the steering gear is located, the linkage is located. This is obviously behind the front wheel center line. This is forward of the front wheel center line. Which we just looked at. Okay, this is the actual four-wheel steering system. They use same phase, opposite phase, which we talked about a minute ago. Same phase means the front and rear wheels are steered in the same direction. Opposite phase means opposite, right? These turn one way, the other turn the other. Pretty self-explanatory there. Opposite phase is also called negative phase sometimes. The front wheels and the rear wheels are turned in opposite directions. Quadra-steer is what GM called that when they used that for a while in their cars, trucks, I mean. Dramatically enhances low-speed maneuverability, high-speed stability, and towing capability. So there's your example, same phase, opposite phase. Again, that should be pretty obvious what they're talking about there. All that means is these rear tires are going to turn opposite the front, same phase, going to turn the same direction, okay? Vehicle equipped with four-wheel steer allows the truck to make shorter turns that would otherwise be possible. Okay, anybody read this? Nobody read that? Let's see what it says. Trucks equipped with quadra-steer system have 3-position switching on the dash. 2-wheel, 4-wheel, or tow. So if you have it in tow mode and you're not towing something, it gets weird, I guess that's what they call that. And then there's a picture of the actual quadra-steer's rear differential and the steering linkage in that picture there. 121.13. Basically, it's just a solid axle rear end that's capable of steering. You see an electric steering motor on there. Like that right there. There's a better view of it.
So if a vehicle starts to shimmy in the steering wheel around 45, 50 miles an hour, and you feel that shimmy, what part is damaged? Like, what's wrong? Does it
Well,
have-
that can be caused by a few different things, but the most likely is just gonna be tire imbalance.
Okay.
Yeah. It could be something else, but that, you know, always assume the easiest first. Don't assume the worst and don't think everything's a big problem, okay? So take a systematic approach to things and don't overlook something and don't look beyond the mark, kind of, right? Like, if the car simply has, tires need to be balanced and you're looking for worn out suspension components, you're just chasing your tail. You know, figure out, take the easiest step first. Again, I've used this example before, you got a check engine light on your car. You check the code, it's got a P0442 or something like that for an evap system leak. Don't go looking for evap system leak somewhere and do exploratory surgery. First thing you're gonna do is check the gas cap. Make sure it's tight, make sure it's good, make sure it's on, okay? And then go from there.
Okay.
Because why would you wanna try to diagnose something when it could be simple as a gas cap's leaks?
Right.
Okay, take the simplest approach first. Because a lot of times things are easy to fix and, you know, you see people dive too far into something. They dive into deep water when they could have fixed it in shallow water, you know?
Right. I asked that because I thought that there was something earlier in one of the previous chapters, whichever one, where it said something about that vibration in the steering wheel with and then I was thinking
Right.
maybe it had to do with the steering and suspension.
It could, depending on what's worn or, you know, what's worn out or whatever, but again, you would obviously go for tire balance first. If that's not it, then you're gonna look for something in the suspension that's loose or worn out or whatever,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this, yeah,
My fault. Real quick, it's a old question, a question you might not like to hear. But what does PCV stand for again?
anybody remember? Who can answer his question? Who remembers
Pressure
that?
control valve.
Thank you.
What is it?
Pressure control valve.
No.
No?
Sounds right,
PCV.
sounds good, but it's not.
There's a lot of PCVs.
There is
Hold
a
on.
lot of acronyms in the car world.
Yeah.
Anybody remember what that was?
Valve,
What is that?
wait a minute, there's a few of them, hold on.
Does V stand for valve though, right?
Nope,
It's variable
Deep
somewhere.
position.
nope,
No?
It's deeper position.
nope.
Hmm.
Why do you need to know?
Is it power?
There's a reason.
Nope.
There's a reason.
Alright.
Nobody remembers what that is, huh?
It was like one of the first things we went
PCV
over.
valve, it's
Uh-huh.
PCV. Hold on,
It was
I got
back,
it.
it was back in
I got it.
there, one of the
I got
first
it.
things we did.
Don't say
Yeah, what
it,
is it?
hold on. Personal. No. Shit, no. It's back here, hold on. I had it, they told me, it's in chapter 5.
P stand for positive?
It does.
Positive.
We got the first word. Give us the second word.
Is it a C crank or crankshaft?
Yep, crankcase.
Or crank
Case. Okay, we got the first two words. Back row to our first
Variable.
two words. What's the last one?
Variable.
No.
No.
Ventilation?
There you go.
Oh.
Look at that. Positive crankcase ventilation, yeah. Yeah, it keeps crankcase pressure from building up and
Okay.
causing seals to leak and stuff like that.
Okay.
Keeps the crankcase ventilated.
But pressure control valve is one of them, right? One of the PCVs?
I suppose you could call it that, but that's not.
That's not
what
what
it
it
is.
is. Oh, okay, so, okay.
Yeah. Okay, good job, three of
What
you
is it?
back there.
Say it again, because pressure control is stuck in my head. Say it again.
Positive crankcase ventilation.
Positive, thank you.
Okay. Do you have to lubricate your steering linkage?
It looks like it
Yeah.
here in this picture.
It depends on what type you have.
Part
You
of
know.
steering linkage lubrication is applying grease to the steering stops.
Yeah, you're gonna see that in that one picture there, if it has a steering stop. Again, that's on the older style, steering linkage. And the picture above that's just showing
So you could just do that by hand, like there's no
yeah,
grease?
yeah, right,
Oh.
yeah. Yeah. So for the most part, on the newer cars, there's really no steering lubrication to be done. All the ball joints, tie rod ends, all that stuff are sealed. So you don't have to worry too much about that. If anybody's ever greased a tie rod end or a ball joint or anything like that, you'll see something wrong with that picture in 121.14. Anybody guess what it is?
Say that one more time. What did you say?
Let me see. Okay, there's the picture here
What was
too.
the question?
What's wrong with this picture? This is a grease gun, right? He's
Mhm.
getting ready to grease this tie rod end.
There's no fitting.
There is a fitting.
Where?
Right here. Here's a grease fitting right there.
Oh, well, there's grease all over it. It's all dusty and dirty.
Yeah,
so
you're supposed to wipe it
grease
off.
getting on. Yeah.
Supposed to wipe all the crap off of it.
That's why it doesn't look like a fucking
Right,
fitting.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, wipe it clean first. Get all this crap off of there, then grease it,
It looks
right?
like a black kiwi.
Okay. I like to make fun of their pictures sometimes. Definitely don't do that if somebody's inside the car turning the steering wheel, because this is gonna hit here, and it's gonna pinch your finger, and that's gonna be the end of your
And that
finger.
red stuff ain't gonna be blue. It's gonna be something totally different.
Don't be playing with steering linkage if somebody's in the car, you know, like turning the wheel, or you're trying to figure out what's going on, because sometimes it'll take 2 people. You have somebody in the car, turning the steering wheel, and you're looking for things wrong. Don't put your fingers where they don't belong, okay? You wanna make sure you have all 10 of them when you get to be my age, all right?
All right.
Is this handle bleeding?
That's
What's
lube.
that?
That's lubricant.
Can't hear you.
I thought his hand was bleeding.
Oh, it looks like it, huh? It's red grease. It would be if the guy turning the steering wheel always doing that. Yeah, it's just red grease. Okay, we've talked about the dry park test before in one of the other chapters. Anybody remember what that was? What the purpose of it was, or how it was done?
Wasn't that the brakes and everything?
No, it's, like,
Oh, what?
parking the level ground.
Mhm.
Somebody
Yep. Mhm. Effective, easy way to perform steering component inspection called the dry park test. Just applying the steering wheel can be caused by worn or damaged steering components. Simple test performed with the vehicle on the ground on a drive-on type hoist. That way you can get under it. Moving the steering wheel back and forth slightly while somebody feels for movement in each section of the steering system. Seeing if something is wrong, has too much play, worn out, whatever. Checking for free play in the steering wheel. This is a funny picture. I like to make fun of this one too. What's the problem with this?
Using a roller to make the steering wheel straight.
Part of the problem is, at least the way I look at it, is if you're trying to get a measurement here and you're just holding this like this, what are the chances of you not, moving it one way or the other, being able to hold it perfectly still? Yeah, I suppose you could, but I don't know that I could. All the joints should be felt and checked on a dry park test. Anti-tie rods can be felt through the rubber bellows on many vacuum pinion units. Challenge rebound test, that's just basically pushing down on the car and letting it kind of do the bounce. So what they're saying here is on a hard surface, put the front wheel straight ahead, unlock position, bounce on the car. The steering wheel should not move during this test. Yeah.
I've seen some people do it by opening the door, standing on the door jam, just going up and down to check for that instead of
It's
pushing the car down.
best to push on the front of the car because that way you get equal, because otherwise you're just kind of pushed on one side of the car.
No, I mean like both sides, like the passenger and the
Oh,
driver.
oh, yeah, I get you. Okay.
Yeah, because
Anyway, what they're getting at here is if you have the car on level ground, wheel straight ahead, steering wheel unlocked so it's free, right? And you push up and down on the front of the car, the steering wheel shouldn't move as you do that. Okay, the steering wheel should just remain still while you push up and down on the car and let it kind of do a little bounce.
Got you.
Okay? If it doesn't, your alignment's out. Steering and suspension arms must remain parallel to prevent up and down movement of the suspension from causing the wheels to turn inward or outward. Center link should be parallel to the floor. It's called parallelism. purpose of your dry part test is what?
Excessive play in the steering wheel, check.
Yep, just to make sure nothing's worn out, make sure you don't have excessive play in the steering wheel, all that kind of stuff. Why do only few vehicles have grease fittings? Well, we decided it was better off.
All vehicles were equipped with grease fittings, while today very few vehicles are so equipped. It has been determined that the use of the wrong type of grease can cause more harm than good. If grease fitting is used to allow grease to enter the suspension or steering joint, then water can also get inside the joint. And there's two other ones, but I really
Yep.
read them.
Grease fittings are often ignored in greasing the joint, not performed by the service technician. All right. What are common wear items on the suspension system? 1486.
Idler arm.
Idler arm, if it has one. If it's a rack and pinion, it does not have one. Okay?
Outer tie rod ends.
Okay?
Inner tie rod ends. Center link and pitman arm.
Okay. See on the outer tie rod it says replace in pairs only?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the springs, you know, don't replace just one of them. Okay. All right. Wear and non-wear center links. The only difference between a wear center link and a non-wear center link is one actually has a like a ball joint in it that can actually wear out. The center links that don't, there's really nothing to wear out. It's just basically a steel bar that connects the steering linkage.
I have a really quick question. So
You do?
On the boot of the U-joint, well, what if that like comes like it's loose and it comes off and it has like?
Are you looking at a picture of the what?
Yeah, this one right here. You see like this boot over
Oh,
here?
oh, the boot on the steering gear? Yeah.
So what if like that comes off and there's like grease on it?
Are you sure you're looking at the steering gear boot and not an axle?
No, because when we were doing the suspension work on this car, there was like a lot of grease all over it.
Okay.
And then the boot was like, it was off, it was blue, you know, shake
Okay.
it easily.
Chances are something was leaking on it. Maybe it had a oil leak or power steering leak or something like that. And something, and the oil over the years got on that boot and it just deteriorated.
And it got like
constantly.
all over like the
Yeah.
whole suspension, and it was like everywhere.
It's probably got a leak somewhere. Probably didn't come from the steering gear itself. Right? It could have, but a lot of times you get a leak somewhere and it will drip on a boot like that, and that causes that rubber to deteriorate.
Is it usually about the way you drive too? It's like you keep spinning the front wheels a lot?
No, it wouldn't have anything to do with driving habits. Yeah.
'Cause he's a really rough driver.
I know people like that. Okay, here's your typical parallelogram steering linkage. Steering linkage, center link can also be called relay rod, drag link, or connecting link. That might show up later too. Just a little FYI. Okay, here is your pitman arm shaft. This is the one that actually hooks the sector shaft again. This turns the whole steering linkage. Idler arm just supports the other side of it. Attaches to the frame of the vehicle. Okay, this is the difference I was telling you about the center link. Wear and non-wear center links. Which one's which? Which one of these could wear out? Top or bottom? The top, right? Because it's got these ball joints on the end. These could wear out. There's nothing to wear out here. It's just a steel bar, right? So it's a wear and non-wear center link. All right. Under the vehicle inspection. Inspect each part for damage due to accident, bent parts, due to hitting an object in the roadway, something like that. Idler arm inspection is performed using a hand force of about 25 pounds, up and down on the arm. Other steering linkage should be tested by hand for looseness, vertical side-to-side looseness, that kind of thing. They should all be tested with the steering wheel in the straight ahead position. Up and down force 25 pounds on the idler arm, okay? Should not exceed 1/4 of an inch movement. If it does, it's worn out. any steering components should be replaced if there's any looseness in them, or if you can move them in a direction that they're not supposed to move by hand, such as lateral or vertical on a tie rod end. Which type of tie rod end is this?
Castle nut. That's
Okay,
the nut, though.
so it's got the tapered, right, it's tapered here, got the castle nut and the caterpillar, right? You take this pin out, you take this nut off, what's gonna happen to this?
Loose.
What's that?
It's gonna be free.
Nope. It's not even gonna care that you did it.
Hmm?
It's not gonna come loose at all. You can take that pin out of there and take that nut off, and it's not gonna be any looser than it was before.
That's not a ball joint?
It's a tie rod end. Ball joint same way, if it's that type.
Okay.
Why won't this come off if you take that nut off?
Does it stop pressing in?
Because it's tapered, right? As you tighten that nut, it presses it into there. So you have to have a special tool for that, right? The little pickle fork or the ball jointed tie rod remover that clamps to here and then pushes it out. Or sometimes, if you want to take the easy way out, you can just spray a little penetrating oil on there and then just hit this with a hammer. And if you hit it just right, that'll drop right off. It's not hurting anything. Don't hit this, hit this. Okay? Okay. We don't care about that. If a rack and pinion or any other steering linkage is not level, front wheels will move in or out whenever the vehicle moves up and down. That will cause you all kinds of crazy steering problems when you're driving down the road. Will not be fun to drive. Maybe you don't replace the rack and pinion unit?
No.
No? Okay, now you have. There's a little special puller, pull the outer tie rod ends off, unhook any power steering linkage or electrical connectors if it happens to be electric. Take the bolts out, take the pinch bolt out on the U-joint here, and it comes out, nothing to it. Okay, steering linkage replacement on a parallelogram. It's best to replace any defective or marginally good components at the same time. When replacing tie rod ends, use the adjusting sleeve to adjust the total length. Try to get it in the same position as original, at least that'll give you close enough to get you to the shop to get it aligned. Remember the video we watched last week where Chris was doing that whole suspension rebuild? And he took a little paint marker and marked the old tie rod, and he took it off, put the new one on in about the same spot. That way your alignment's at least close. Okay, that's your toe setting, okay? Okay. That's what I was telling you, the special tool you have to do to break loose these. Again, if you don't have the pickle fork or the puller, you can hit that with a hammer and break it loose. It's not gonna hurt it. Don't hit it here where the nut goes, and don't hit the actual tie rod, okay? Hit the steering knuckle. You hit it just right with a hammer, you usually just drop right off. Okay, like that. They actually even show you doing it. 2 hammers, one backing up the other one. As you can see, he's actually hitting the steering knuckle, not the nut, not the tie rod. You just hit it right there, and like I said, normally this will just drop right out. You see how this nut's loose, but they didn't take it all the way off? So when this drops off, it keeps it from just dropping down. The nut will catch it, then you can just take it off. All right. If you have to pull the fitment arm off, good luck. Those things do not like to come off. Those are also on a tapered spline shaft. They require a puller. And sometimes even with a puller, they don't want to come off. That's what one looks like. See how the splines have a alignment spot in them? So you can't put this on in 20 different positions. It only fits one way. Got an indexing spline on it. Got that? Okay. We talked about this in another chapter before. If you go to put one of these on, whether it's a ball joint or tie rod end, and it's a castle nut type, you get it tight and the hole doesn't line up for the pin. What do?
Tighten it till it lines up.
Yep, don't loosen it, okay? Tighten it a little bit more until this hole lines up so you can put the pin in it, okay? Because since that's a tapered fit, if you loosen it a little bit, it's gonna end up having play in there and it's gonna cause problems. All right. We're just telling you to measure these before you replace them so you can get close on your alignment. They should be installed so the stud is in the center of its operating range. The older cars that have that parallelogram type steering, they will have a sleeve to adjust the toe, different than the rack and pinion, okay? So on these, all you do is you loosen these two bolts here, and you can just rotate this sleeve, and this will get shorter or longer depending on which way you turn it. I don't worry about an articulation test. This is just removing an inner tie rod on a staked tie rod assembly. It requires 2 wrenches. One holds the rack, the other will unscrew it from the steering rack. Both sides must be staked in order, or put down to the flat shoulder of the rack. This keeps it from coming loose. We saw, in the video, we saw Chris do that, remember? Where you put those inner tie rod in and you stake those 2 inner parts of there. That's what they were showing you. After replacing the tie rod end, the socket assembly should be secured, the rivet or set screw depending on the style of replacement. Tie rod end replacement. This is rack and pinions type, pretty easy. Just take the nut off of the tie rod, you just unscrew it, leave the adjuster nut where it is so you know how close you are on the new one. Put the new one on, lock the nut down, put that back in the steering knuckle, put the nut on it, and that's that. In pair, okay? Replace both sides. Be sure to check the toe adjustment when you're done because it will be off. Inductive heating tool, all that is a little thing that heats up nuts or bolts or whatever to get them off so you don't have to use fire on them.
Oh, question, so that's why you're supposed to align the vehicle after you do anything with the steering and suspension?
Anytime a suspension component is replaced, you need to do alignment.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Absolutely. Okay, bump steer, what's the cause of that? Rack and pinion gear is not parallel to the road surface. Dry park test. Just checking to make sure everything is good and tight, no excessive free play, nothing worn out. Arm tech, looseness in the tie rods, and that is that. Everybody done, or no? I see somebody still writing. How's it going over there, Tiffany?
Only have 2 left.
Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes.
All right, I'm ready.
We can start, or we still waiting?
If she's done, we're done. We're ready.
Okay.
If nobody else is, still working, right?
ID's still working.
Okay.
Oh. How much force is generally used to check idler arms? A, 25 pounds.
Who got 25? Everybody, right? Okay.
How are the inner tie rods attached to the rack on the center takeoff rack and pinion steering gear? I couldn't find it. I was reading the things, but it didn't specify. When I took a guess and said bolted because it wasn't on there.
Who got bolted for center takeoff?
Okay.
Bolted.
Where's that at
Correct.
though? Because I couldn't
Page
find it.
1483.
1483.
Bolted? Yep.
Actually, you can see it on 1483, there's actually a picture of it. Center takeoff rack and pinion style, you can see tie rod attachments bolted to it. Picture top of 1483 on the left. All right.
Oh, attachment bolts. Okay.
Cross steer linkage is found on
Light trucks and
light
vans.
trucks.
Yes, B is correct. Let's see how you do with this one.
Which of the following, terms may be used to describe a sanitary, all the above?
All of those could be used to describe it.
Definition A says the outer rod ends should be replaced in areas only if only one is worn. Definition B says that the inner tie rod end should be replaced in areas even if only one is worn.
Both of them, okay.
New tire rods are being installed. Mission A says the time bearing must be verification.
Specification.
To specification.
And loosen, then loosen. If needed to align the copper pinhole, position B says
No.
time further align the cotter keyhole with technician as direct.
B.
B, never loosen it, okay.
Which of the following is not a component of parallelogram type steering linkage?
Which one?
B.
Good, good, drag link, yeah.
Steering linkage joints should be lubricated with grease.
Grease is correct.
A rack and pinion inner tie rod end is often secured by which of these methods? Is it staked?
That was C,
So both?
C.
I wasn't sure about that one.
It's
Rivet or
couldn't
pin or
find that
stake,
on the
either
original.
one of those is correct.
It is either one. Now, what page was that on? 'Cause I couldn't.
It should be
1482,
but I
it
couldn't
should
find it in
be.
Rivet
That's
or
where I was
Pin.
looking, but I didn't see.
I can see it on, this is called stakes.
'Cause I know the stake has the outer tie rod, and then the riveted or the pin doesn't really specify, but it does say rack and pinion. And then center takeoff racks is inner.
Center takeoffs are bolted, yeah. The others could be riveted or pinned or staked. 1482 is where you will see that. All right.
which of the following linkage types may be used with a rack and pinion design?
Wasn't it the Holzenberger?
Well, I
I
don't
don't know
know.
what page is that on. I couldn't find that one either.
A? Anybody else?
I
A?
thought it
I'm
was
going
A, but I
A?
wasn't sure. Because
Oh, that's cross steer.
Okay. I want you to reread the question very carefully and then answer it.
Because I don't think it's A, because the parallelogram is different.
Is it C?
I couldn't find cross steer.
I want you to read the question very carefully. What is it?
None of these, right? 'Cause
Oh yeah, the linkage and the rock and pinion.
Exactly, none of them. Rack and pinion doesn't use any of those.
Yeah, I couldn't even find it. I couldn't find it.
Oh, man. I knew that one would be fun. None of those. Rack and pinion uses none of those. It's its own system. All right. Okay. We did this question, didn't we, right? Both did. What's the following types? None of those, we just did that one. Okay, number 3. What's a zert fitting?
It's in the very first page.
What is a zert fitting?
It's that guy from 1922.
Yeah, that's him.
Grease fitting.
It's just a technical name for the little grease fitting that you grease the ball joints or tie rods with. The little grease fitting, that's all it is. Okay, so. Says it should be greased at least every 6 months. Tech B says some steering linkage joints are sealed and don't require regular service. A? Okay? A is good. Do some steering joints, linkage joints are sealed and do not require regular service? I think so. Most of them are that way now. Only the older ones need to be greased. Okay, what about this?
It's 4.
What do we got for 4?
J is wrong. This is steering top stops.
They're both right,
Yeah,
right?
both.
Oh, yeah?
Well, the socket joints do need to be lubricated because they're a joint.
Okay, so you know A is wrong then,
B is
because he says they don't.
Yeah, but they do.
Okay.
And it is,
Oh, do not need to. Okay, so the technician
Yeah,
so it's B only.
exactly. Okay.
4-wheel steering wheels. Same phase? No.
Moving at low speeds.
Moving at slow speed, like parking lot maneuver.
Single phase.
If it's parking lot maneuver, then it would be opposite.
Yes, exactly. Slow speed is gonna use opposite phase if it is four-wheel steer. Okay.
No. Yes.
Torque prevailing.
I would say
Definition
B
B.
only.
B only, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those torque prevailing nuts, never reuse them. Same with the bolts. A lot of bolts are like that too.
We didn't even go over bump steer. You skipped it.
Bump stick.
All right.
He says there's the steering wheel move.
Bump steer,
It's that big blue
baby.
box.
Let's look at the old bump steer. It was in the blue box, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I believe B is right.
Technician says an unlevel steering linkage can be exposed.
I think that,
Technician B says that if the steering wheel moves when the vehicle is bounced up and down, the steering linkage may be bent. Both are correct.
Oh, yeah, that was a big long one. 1488.
Yeah.
Bump steer. Well, what happened here was the guy replaced the idle arm and he put it back in the wrong spot. The steering linkage is out of adjustment.
Yeah. So they both.
Or,
be,
not out of adjustment, but out of alignment. Right?
Could
Because,
be both.
because the pitman arm allowed the steering linkage to be moved one way or the other because apparently there was more than two bolts in there to hold it on and he got it in one of the wrong holes or something. All right, so which one is it?
Both.
Both, okay. We did that one. How about 9?
Shock absorber. Or steering dampener, I forgot. It's the same.
Yeah, it's basically a shock absorber,
Yeah,
it's
it's
called
the
a
same
steering
thing,
dampener,
but
yeah,
steering
so
dampener.
just use the right term, okay? All right.
Drag link.
Drag link, we went through this one already, didn't we? Okay. All right. Okay. Questions on 1495. Let's see if there's anything new and exciting there. One we did, right?
Yep. Dragging.
B, yeah. 2 we did. B. 3 we did, which is C. 4 we did, which is D. Looks like 5 might be a new question. Because excessive amount of free flow in the steering wheel, it's difficult to keep it traveling straight on a straight and level road. Which one of these is least likely to cause that?
More on idler arm.
Keep going, that's not the correct answer. Least likely to
B?
cause it. What's that?
B?
B?
No. B? No.
No, D.
Charles is on it. Who's pivot arm retaining nut? First of all, that nut's not gonna come loose. Second of all, even if it was, it wouldn't cause any problems because that pivot arm is on a spline shaft and requires a puller to get it off. It would probably likely never cause a problem. However, that's the least likely thing to cause that. All right. Which of the following components, steering components, commonly wears out first?
Center link.
Inner tie rod.
Pitman arms.
Pitman arm. Unless it's the type that has the ball joint type of connection on it, pitman arm will never wear out.
It says inner tie rod's there.
What is it?
Oh no, idler arm.
Idler arm. Most commonly wears out. Now, just remember, if it's a rack and pinion, it does not have an idler arm. Okay, that's only on the older style, parallelogram type, you know, whatever. Bump steer question. I'm sorry, what's that?
Number 2.
2?
B? Oh, okay.
Number 2 is B.
B, yeah. Center takeoff bolted. Remember that, okay?
Number 6 is C.
6?
Yeah.
Yes. Who wants number 7, the bump steer question?
Didn't we do that?
I don't
Both.
Did we do that one?
Yeah,
Did we?
both.
It is both. Somebody don't remember that. Okay.
We just did it. That was the last question on the, what's it called?
Okay, well, what do I know?
Test it there. 8, I think it's 0. I can't find nothing else in here that says anything
Yep,
about that.
0. How much end play is acceptable in tie rods? None.
0.
Okay. We did 9. And we did 10. B for 10, B for 9. All right. We are not going to do hydraulic power steering until after lunch. We'll do this real quick. Only 9 questions. Same thing we've been doing after each one. Pull these off the top of your head. No research.
Is anyone coming to visit today?
Who?
Is anyone coming to visit the class today?
Not that I'm aware of. How come?
Because today is
I
tax
know, you
day.
were wanting donuts.
Yes.
Should've known.
Hey, was it?
Tax day, so Krispy Kreme is having a special. If you buy a dozen, you get another dozen for only the tax
You
price.
know their dozens are fucking
$20,
now?
yes.
Fuck that.
Much they used to be.
They used to be like,
They're turning 16.
last time I remember I went up there, I bought a dozen for like $12. Like damn near $1 piece.
Like, not everybody got your
Bless you.
Okay, everybody done?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go.
What is the term used to describe a vehicle that has the steering gear in front of the front wheel center line? Is it forward steer?
Uh-huh.
What is the best type of steering for higher speed handling and lane change maneuvers? Same phase steering.
Same phase steering, yes.
Wait, I don't know what B.
Yeah.
First two are B.
Alrighty.
What is the recommended maximum amount of free play in the steering for parallelogram type steering linkages? A.
A would be a good answer, but it's actually
Is it B?
B, yeah. It does say maximum. How about for a rack and pinion steering?
I said A, but now I feel like it's wrong.
That B.
B. Hopkins.
I guessed on that one and I got it right.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
I'll usually highlight the answer up on the board. C, bridge lynch. Which one's more precise? Rack and pinion.
Hammer.
What is the recommended for loosening and such as a tightened rod and D?
Tie rod remover, tie rod removal puller kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
What is it?
D, as in D-A-W-G, dog.
Crazy thing is, I didn't even realize that was there.
Wait a minute, but it says loosening taper components
Yeah.
such as. So it's using a tie rod as an example, right? Loosening taper components.
Paper components,
It's
such as a
meaning
tie rod.
all components, not just a tie rod.
Yeah, it says such as, which means it could
Right.
be a ball joint or a tie rod.
So you can use a tie rod removal puller on other tapered components.
You could use it for a ball joint, yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. The
Okay.
hammer will get it done, but this says the recommended tool. You should use a puller, but hey, if you don't have a puller, hammer works.
So I wouldn't be wrong if I said hammer.
It wouldn't be wrong, it just, well,
It says recommended.
let's just say, if it just said what tool could be used, but it says which one is recommended.
Hammer.
Whenever it says recommended, it's always gonna be, the proper tool. A hammer will get it done.
For loosening tape, okay.
One, 6.
Number 6,
Which of the following parts should be replaced in pairs only? D?
B,
Yep.
yep. And why else is that true? Because it only has one of these, it only has one of these, it only has one of these, you can't replace them in pairs, there's only one. Right?
Right.
That's the only obvious answer. All right, 7,
What is the recommended action to take when replacing steering system components? C?
C? Yep, C is correct. All defective and marginally good components at the same time. Who knows what the 3 B's are?
Oh my god. Is it A?
Bent, broken, and binding, yeah. A for H.
Not that one.
Who's next?
Who gets number 9?
Oh, what is the recommended action to take when replacing inner tie rod end assemblies used on rack and pinion steering units? I really don't know. I guessed D,
C.
but I wanted to go with A.
You should have gone with A.
Mm,
You're good at having your first thought be the right answer and then changing it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see after lunch. And we'll do hydraulic power steering. when we get back, somebody ask me why this is up here, okay?
1703.
Somebody ask me why that's up there when we get back, okay? It's not important, but I was a story I wanted to tell you.
Alrighty.